A couple of years ago, most people knew AI as the thing that suggested the next word in a text message, recommended a movie you probably would not watch, or kept asking if you wanted to talk to a chatbot on a customer service website. Then ChatGPT showed up, and suddenly every company, every school, every uncle on Facebook, and every guy with a podcast microphone had a very strong opinion about artificial intelligence. Some people said it would replace everybody. Some people said it was all a scam. And most of us were somewhere in the middle, like always, trying to figure out why the computer could write a sonnet, but still occasionally insist that a restaurant 3 towns over is open when it burned down in 2019. So today, I want to talk about how we got here. The companies, the models, the breakthroughs, the bad decisions, the stuff that worked, and the stuff that absolutely did not work, and what we probably are in for next. This is not the history of AI going back to a room full of men in 1956 wearing ties and declaring they had solved intelligence by lunch. This is the modern history, the part that explains why AI went from a nerdy research project to something sitting in your phone, your inbox, your search engine, your office software, and your kid's homework folder. And yes, there is a catch with almost every part of it, because there is always a catch. For a long time, AI was mostly invisible. It helped banks spot fraud. It helped Netflix recommend things. It helped Google understand what you meant when you misspelled a search so badly that even your phone was embarrassed for you. It was useful, but it was background useful. The deep learning started getting better. That is a fancy way of saying computers got better at learning patterns from huge piles of data. The big ingredients were more data, faster computer chips, better software, and a whole lot of money. And one of the companies that quietly set the table for this whole thing was NVIDIA. NVIDIA made graphics chips for video games. Then everybody realized those same chips, well, they were unusually good at the kind of massive math work needed to train AI. So while the rest of us were arguing about whether a new graphics card could run a game at 4K, NVIDIA was becoming the hardware company behind the whole new industrial revolution. That was one thing that went right. The chips got good enough. The computing power got big enough. And suddenly, ideas that had been sitting in research papers started becoming real products. Google has been a major AI company for a long time. Search is an AI problem. Translation is an AI problem. Maps are an AI problem. YouTube recommendations, whether you like them or not, are definitely an AI problem. Then there was DeepMind. DeepMind became famous when AlphaGo beat world champion Lee Sedol at the game Go in 2016. Now, if you're not a Go player, you may have heard the story and thought, okay, a computer won a board game. My toaster also beats me at making toast. But Go is insanely complex. Experts thought computers were years, maybe decades away from beating the best human players. Then AlphaGo showed up and did it. That moment mattered because it showed AI could do more than follow obvious rules. It could learn patterns, evaluate opinions, and make moves that surprised experts. But the real earthquake came from Google researchers in 2017. They published a paper called "Attention is All You Need." That is a very confident title for a research paper. It's also the paper that introduced the transformer architecture. Transformers became the basic design behind much of the modern AI world. GPT, Claude, Gemini, a whole lot of AI systems you hear about today grew out of that breakthrough. Google helped invent the thing that changed the world. And then, now this is where it gets interesting, other companies did a better job of putting it directly in front of regular people. That is one of the things that went wrong for Google. They had tremendous research, tremendous talent, tremendous computing power, and the product that kicked open the public door came from somewhere else. That happens in business all the time. It's not always the company with the best idea that wins the first round. Sometimes it's the company that ships. That company for this moment was OpenAI. OpenAI had been working on a family of models called GPT, Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Again, not a name anybody would have chosen after 2 cups of coffee. GPT-2 got attention because it could generate text. GPT-3 in 2020 made more people sit up and say, wait a minute, this is getting kind of weird. It could write, it could summarize, it could produce code, it could answer questions, it could imitate the shape of human communication well enough that you started to see the promise and the problem. But GPT-3 was mostly something developers and early adopters played with. Then, in November 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT, and that changed absolutely everything. Not because ChatGPT was the first AI model, not because it was perfect. It was because they put it in a simple chat box. You could type a question in plain English and get a response. No code, no complicated software, no enterprise sales call, no 40-minute webinar explaining the dashboard. Just ask it something. That was the breakthrough. The technology had been building for years. The interface made it feel personal. Suddenly, people who had never used an AI tool were writing emails, lesson plans, resumes, recipes, scripts, business ideas, and terrible country songs before dinner. So what went right? OpenAI made AI accessible. They turned a technical capability into a product normal people could actually use. Okay, so what went wrong? Well, they released a tool that sounded confident even when it was wrong. And that introduced millions of people to hallucinations. A hallucination is when an AI makes something up, a fake citation, a fake fact, a fake quote, a very convincing explanation of something that has never, ever happened. That is not a small problem. The first time somebody uses AI and it gives them a perfect looking answer, they think this thing knows everything. Then the 10th time they use it, they may realize this thing is very fast intern with excellent grammar and no shame about guessing. That is the relationship you need to have with AI. Useful, impressive, not the final authority. Then GPT-4 arrived in 2023. And it was clearly better at harder tasks. Microsoft had made a huge bet on OpenAI. Microsoft integrated AI into Bing, Windows, Microsoft 365, GitHub, and just about every product where a button could be renamed Copilot. Now, I'm not saying every Copilot feature has been a home run. At one point, it felt like companies were putting Copilots on things the way restaurants used to put Chipotle mayo on everything. But Microsoft understood something important. AI was not just going to live in one website. It was going to move into the software people already use all day. Word documents, spreadsheets, email, code editors, meetings, search, customer service. That is where this all gets useful. Now, when you ask it to write a poem about your dog in the style of Shakespeare, to be fair, that's a fine way to spend a Tuesday. But the problem is that companies began racing to announce AI features before they were always ready. So Google rushed out Bard. Microsoft early Bing chatbots sometimes got weirdly argumentative and maybe racist. Companies were adding AI buttons to products where nobody had asked for an AI button. There were demos, there were promises, there were revolutionary announcements, and there were a lot of tools that could technically do something, but probably should have spent another 6 months in the oven. That is one of the biggest lessons in this whole AI story. The race is real, and when companies race, the customer often gets to beta test the brakes. Then there is Anthropic and Claude. Anthropic was founded by people who came out of OpenAI and wanted to focus heavily on AI safety and reliability. Claude became known for being helpful with long documents, writing, analysis, thoughtful responses. Anthropic also built its identity around something called constitutional AI. The plain English version is that they train the model using a set of written principles, a constitution, there you go. Now, no AI company has solved safety. Let's be honest about that. Every company is still figuring out how to make these tools useful without making them dangerous, deceptive, invasive, or easy to misuse. But Anthropic deserves credit for making the question part of the product conversation. They did not say, look how powerful this thing is. They also said, what happens when it gets too powerful? That is a question more companies need to ask before launch day, not after somebody screenshots the mistake. Claude also pushed hard on the idea that AI could be more than chat. Claude Code can help developers work on actual software. Cowork can take on longer tasks across files and connected tools. And the industry is moving towards agents, AI that does not just answer questions, but takes steps towards a goal. That is exciting. It's also the point where we need to have some grown-up rules. A chatbot can give you a bad answer. An agent can give you a bad answer, open your email, change a spreadsheet, send something to a customer before you've had your coffee. That is a different category of problem. Meta came at AI from another direction. Meta has released models in the Llama family that help push the idea of open weight AI. Now, open in AI can mean several things because apparently we needed one more confusing term. An open weight model gives developers and companies more ability to run, adapt, and build with the model themselves. That can mean more control, more privacy, more ability to run a model locally, more competition. It can also mean more responsibility. So a closed model is more like renting an apartment. The landlord handles a lot of the infrastructure. An open model is more like buying a fixer-upper. You get more freedom, but now the water heater is your problem. Meta's move mattered because it made the AI race bigger than a few companies in San Francisco. It gave smaller companies, researchers, developers, and people outside the biggest labs more options. That is good for competition. It's also much harder to control. And this is the theme that keeps coming back. The same thing that makes AI more accessible can also make it easier to misuse. I want to tell you about UX.AI. UX.AI is a one-day summit happening September 12th, 2026 in Waco, Texas. It's for founders, creators, marketers, and real people who want to understand where artificial intelligence fits into their actual work, not just sit through another room full of people saying disruption without ever explaining what they did on Tuesday. There are hands-on AI sessions, a creator track, working practitioners, a room built around a pretty simple idea. You experience your voice, your relationships, and you are the only one that can be the multiplier. AI is the accelerant. UX.AI can be a very powerful combination when you know what you're doing. Get the details and tickets at UX.AI.live. Early bird tickets are available now, and I would love to see you in Waco. All right, back to the part where the whole thing got even more complicated. The first public wave of generative AI was mostly text. Then came images. Tools like Midjourney, DALL, and Stable Diffusion made it obvious that AI was not just going to write, it was going to create visuals. Then came voice cloning, then video generation. And this is where the technology got both more impressive and more uncomfortable. You can now make images that look real. You can make audio that sounds like real people. You can make video that looks increasingly believable. That is useful for creators. It can make production faster. It can help small business create material that they could never afford to before. It can open doors for people with ideas, but not massive budgets. And that's the good part. Here's the bad part. Deepfakes. We're moving out of an era where seeing something on video automatically means it happened. That doesn't mean every video is fake. It means video is no longer proof by itself. And if you're Gen X, you have already lived through enough internet changes to understand this. We started with do not believe everything you read online. Now we add do not believe everything you see, hear, or receive in a frantic voicemail supposedly from your boss. The scam, well, that's not new. The production value has truly improved. Now let's talk about the giant unresolved mess, copyright. AI models had to learn from an enormous amount of human-created material. Books, articles, code, images, music, websites, everything. And that raises real questions. What was licensed? What was publicly available? What was legally acquired? What does fair use mean in this new AI world? What happens when a model can imitate the style of a living artist? What happens when a company makes money using material that came from creators who were never asked? These are not small questions, and the courts, governments, creators, publishers, and AI companies are still working through them. Recent copyright fights have shown that the legal story is not as simple as AI is stealing or everything is fair use. The details actually matter. How the data was obtained matters. How the model is used matters. What the output does matters. And the people who made the original work, will they matter? For creators, my advice is simple. Use AI to help you make your work. Do not use it as an excuse to erase your responsibility for the work. Use it to brainstorm, organize, transcribe, edit, explore, get unstuck. But if your entire prompt is make this exactly like this living artist, well, you already know you're wandering into the questionable part of town. Another big part of the story is that AI stopped being just an American company race. China has major AI companies. Europe has important research and regulation. Open models are being built all over the world. And then we had moments like DeepSeek, where a Chinese lab made people reconsider the idea that the only biggest American companies could build serious AI. Now that shook up the market. It reminded everybody that efficiency does matter. Maybe you don't always need the biggest, most expensive model. Maybe you can get a lot done with smaller, cheaper, faster systems. That is good news for regular people and smaller businesses. Because the future is not just one $200 a month super AI sitting in a cloud somewhere. The future may include smaller models that run on your phone, your laptop, or your company's own hardware. Private, local, fast enough, good enough. And good enough is a powerful phrase in technology. You don't need a Formula One car to drive to the grocery store. So what went right? Well, a lot, actually. AI became useful. Not perfect, but useful. It can help people write better first drafts. It can help small businesses make plans, organize data, answer customer questions, and create things that once required a large team. It can help people learn. It can help developers build. It can help creators get more out of an idea. It can make accessibility better through transcription, translation, voice tools, summaries, and image descriptions. It can take the blank page and turn it into a starting point. And for people with experience, the people who know what good work looks like, it can be a real multiple. That is why I do not buy the idea that AI makes experience less valuable. I think it makes experience more valuable. The tool can generate options. You know which option is the dumb one. Okay, so what went wrong? The hype? It got ahead of the reality. Companies oversold tools. People started using AI without checking its work. Schools and businesses panicked before they had policies. Some tools were released before they were ready. They are real privacy problems. There are real security problems. There are real copyright questions. There are real jobs that will change and some that will just disappear. And there's a very real temptation to automate every human interaction until your business becomes a haunted vending machine. That is not the future I want. The goal should not be to remove people from everything. The goal should be to remove the repetitive, tedious, soul-draining work that keeps good people from doing the things they are actually good at. So, what are we likely in for next? First, more agents. AI will move from answering questions to doing contained jobs. Research this, organize that, prepare a report, compare options, update a document, draft the email, create the spreadsheet, that stuff. The people who use agents well will start with narrow jobs, clear permissions, and human approval. Second, more AI inside the tools you already use. Not a separate chatbot window. Inside your email, your documents, your editing software, your accounting system, your CRM, your browser, your phone. Third, more local and private AI. People and companies are going to want more control over where their information goes. That will create demand for smaller models running closer to the user. Then fourth, we need more proof. We're going to need better ways to show where information came from, whether media has been altered, what AI tool did it, and who approved the final action. Fifth, we need more noise. There'll be more fake experts, more AI-generated junk, more people selling courses about tools they use for 11 minutes. So your advantage is not keeping up with every new launch. Your advantage is having judgment, knowing what helps, knowing what's nonsense, knowing what needs human touch, and knowing that every new technology has a honeymoon period where people insist it'll change everything, followed by the part where we figure out where it actually belongs. That is where we are now. If this helped put the AI story in perspective, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Leave a comment. What is the one part of the AI story you think people are getting wrong right now? And then subscribe to my daily newsletter at thatmikehamilton.com. It is a practical AI, tech, tools, and creator business advice for people who remember dial-up, without the hype, without the jargon, and without acting like you need to become a programmer by Friday. Also, I wrote a book called Make the Show. If you have an idea for a podcast, video series, creative project, or something you've been putting off because you think you need better gear, more permission, or a team of 14 people, Make the Show is designed to help you get moving. You can find the book and subscribe to the daily newsletter at thatmikehamilton.com. I am Mike Hamilton. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, keep a hand on the wheel, and I'll see you next time. Also, I wrote a book called Make the Show. If you have an idea for a podcast, video series, creative project, or something you've been putting off because you think you need better gear, more permission, or a team of 14 people, Make the Show is designed to help you get moving. You can find the book and subscribe to the daily newsletter at thatmikehamilton.com.